Hyun-woo walked through the crystal halls of Nexus Prime. The space station was bigger than any city on Earth. Light came from the walls themselves, making everything glow with soft colors. He had been traveling for 3 months to get here, and now he was about to meet the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The human ambassador wore his best dark suit. It felt strange compared to the flowing robes and metal armor he saw on other creatures walking past him. Some had 4 arms, others had scales instead of skin. A few floated in the air without touching the ground. All of them stared at him as he passed. "The human has arrived," whispered a tall blue creature with too many eyes. "So small," said another voice. "Are we sure they are intelligent?" Hyun-woo kept walking. He had heard worse things said about humans before. At least these aliens said it to his face instead of behind his back. The council chamber was a huge room shaped like a circle. 12 thrones sat around the edges, each one made for a different type of creature. In the center was a small platform where Hyun-woo was supposed to stand. Above him, a dome showed the stars outside. It made him feel very small. The first throne held Vextal, speaker of the Vallani. She looked almost human, but her skin was perfect white, and her eyes were silver. She had lived for thousands of years, and it showed in the way she moved. Everything about her was careful and planned. "Welcome, human," Vextal said. Her voice was beautiful but cold. "You represent a young species. Your people have only been in space for a few hundred years. We have been watching you." "Thank you for inviting us," Hyun-woo replied. He tried to keep his voice steady. Vextal smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Today, we offer your species a great gift, the Ascension Protocol." The throne next to her held a creature that looked like a giant insect made of metal. This was Threndok of the Korthek. When he spoke, his voice sounded like machines talking. "Your species suffers from many problems," Threndok said. "You fight wars. You get sick and die. You waste resources. You cannot agree on simple things. We can fix all of this." The third speaker was the strangest of all. Quinara of the Azari looked like a person, but her eyes glowed with blue light. When she spoke, it sounded like many voices talking at once. "We offer you perfect peace," the voices said. "No more loneliness, no more fear, no more pain. We can make you part of something greater." Hyun-woo looked around the room. The other 9 council members watched him with different expressions. Some looked bored like they had done this many times before. Others seemed curious about what he would say. "What exactly are you offering?" he asked. Vextal stood up from her throne. The air in front of her began to glow and images appeared. Hyun-woo saw pictures of amazing cities, ships that could travel, faster than light, and people who never grew old. "First, we offer you immortality," Vextal said. "Your people will never die from age or sickness. You will have forever to learn and grow." The images changed to show vast machines that could make anything from nothing. "Second, we offer you unlimited resources," Threndok added. "No more hunger, no more poverty. Every human will have everything they need." "Third," Quinara said, "we offer you unity. No more wars, no more arguments. Everyone will think and feel as one. Perfect harmony." The images showed humans living in beautiful cities among the stars. They looked happy and peaceful. But something about the pictures made Hyun-woo feel uncomfortable. The humans in the images all looked the same somehow. Their smiles were identical. And "The cost?" Hyun-woo asked. "There is no cost," Vextal said. "We give this freely. We only ask that you accept our guidance as you learn to use these gifts." "Why?" Hyun-woo asked. "Why give us all this for nothing?" The council members looked at each other. For a moment, no one spoke. "Because," Vextal finally said, "it is what civilized species do. We help younger races grow up. We have done this for many others." Hyun-woo thought about the empty hallways he had walked through to get here. Nexus Prime was built for millions of people, but he had only seen a few thousand. Where was everyone else? "How many species have you helped this way?" he asked. "All of them," Threndok answered. "Every species in the galaxy that has reached space travel, except you." "What happened to the others?" "They accepted our gifts and became happy," Quinara said. But something in the way she said it made Hyun-woo want to ask more questions. "Can I see them?" Can I talk to other species who accepted? You are talking to us, Vextal said. We were all young species once. Now we are advanced. Hyunwoo looked around the room again. He tried to imagine these perfect beings as young and struggling like humans. It was hard to picture. I need time to think about this, he said. The room went very quiet. The council members stared at him like he had said something wrong. Time? Vextal asked. To think about what? We offer you perfection. Yes, but this is a big decision. I need to talk to my people. They should have a say in their future. Other species decided immediately, Threndok said. They understood the value of what we offered. Humans are different, Yunwoo said. We like to argue about things, even good things. That is exactly the kind of primitive thinking we can help you fix, Quinara said. All her voices sounded annoyed now. Yunwoo felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. With respect, maybe some things do not need to be fixed. The silence in the room was heavy now. Hyunwoo could feel 12 pairs of alien eyes staring at him. Some looked confused. Others looked angry. How much time do you need? Vextal asked. Her voice was colder than before. A month, Hyunwoo said. Maybe 2. Very well, Vextal said. You have 30 Earth days, but do not take too long. Our patience has limits. As Hyunwoo left the chamber, he heard the council members talking behind him. Primitive, one said. Stubborn, said another. They will learn, said a third voice. But as he walked back through the crystal halls, Hyunwoo wondered if the council members had ever really learned anything at all. They seemed to know everything and nothing at the same time. He passed a window that showed the stars outside. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home. A small blue planet full of people who argued and fought and dreamed and loved. People who were far from perfect. For the first time since arriving at Nexus Prime, Hyunwoo smiled. Maybe being imperfect was not such a bad thing after all. The video call connected with a soft beep. Hyunwoo looked at the screen showing the Global Council chamber in Geneva. 24 faces stared back at him from around the world. Some looked excited, others worried. All of them wanted answers. President Mi-young spoke first. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her voice was strong. Tell us everything, Ambassador. Hyunwoo took a deep breath. For the next hour, he explained what the Galactic Council had offered. He described the immortality treatments, the unlimited resources, and the promise of perfect unity. When he finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. It sounds too good to be true, said General Tae-ho from South Korea. He was a big man with scars on his hands from old battles. What do they really want? They say they want nothing, Hyunwoo replied. Just to help us grow up as a species. Dr. Dong-min leaned forward. The scientist had been studying alien technology for years. Think of what we could learn. Faster than light travel, unlimited energy, cures for every disease. We could solve every problem humanity has ever faced. But would we still be human? Asked Yoonji. The philosopher was young but wise. If we cannot die, cannot suffer, cannot disagree, what makes us different from them? Artist Sora nodded. She had paint under her fingernails from working on a new piece. All the best art comes from pain and struggle. If we have no problems, what will we create? We will create whatever we want, Dr. Dong-min said. With unlimited time and resources, imagine what art we could make. I have been imagining it, Sora replied, and it scares me. When you have forever, nothing feels urgent. When you have everything, nothing feels special. The debate grew louder. Representatives from different countries and backgrounds argued back and forth. Some wanted to accept immediately. Others wanted to refuse. A few suggested asking for more time to study the offer. President Mi-young watched it all with interest. This is very human, she said to Hyunwoo. Even when offered paradise, we cannot agree. Meanwhile, news of the alien offer had spread across Earth. Every television channel and internet site was talking about it. The reaction was just as divided as the Global Council. In Seoul, Jin-ho sat in his small apartment watching the news. He was a simple man who worked at a convenience store. I do not want to live forever, he told his wife. I like my life the way it is. I like that my time matters because there is not enough of it. On the other side of the city, Nurse Yu Jin was working a night shift at the hospital. She had just lost another patient to cancer, a young girl only 8 years old. If the aliens can stop this, she whispered to herself, how can we say no? In New York, businessman Park Woo-jin was calculating the economic impact. Think of the profit potential, he said to his board. Unlimited resources means unlimited growth. But in a small village in Africa, teacher Lee Sun-young was reading to children under a tree. Will the aliens let us keep our languages? She wondered. Our stories? Our different ways of seeing the world? The arguments continued for days. Social media exploded with opinions. Families fought at dinner tables. Friends stopped speaking to each other. It was chaos, but it was beautiful chaos. Back in Geneva, the Global Council was still debating. General Taeho stood up and walked to the window. You know what I realized? He said. Every military victory in history came from someone thinking differently, from someone seeing what others could not see. If we all think the same way, how do we solve new problems? Dr. Dong-min shook his head. But think of all the problems we would not have. No more war, no more disease, no more poverty, no more challenge, added Yoonji. No more growth. When you have solved every problem, what is left to live for? President Mi-young listened to them argue for hours. She watched representatives from every continent share their thoughts. Some spoke with passion, others with careful logic. A few just shared their fears. I keep thinking about my grandmother, said Representative Kim Jae-sung from Japan. She lived through war and poverty. She told me that the hard times taught her to value the good times. If there are no hard times, how do we know when times are good? My grandfather died fighting for freedom, said Representative Park Soo-jin from India. If we give up our freedom to choose our own path, what did he die for? The debate went on and on. But slowly, something interesting started to happen. The more they argued, the more they understood each other. The Korean representatives began to see why the African delegates had different concerns. The European speakers started to understand the Asian perspective. We are doing something the aliens probably cannot do, observed Yoonji. We are disagreeing and still respecting each other. We are finding common ground in our differences. Artist Sora smiled. That is what makes us human. We can hold opposite ideas in our heads at the same time. We can be logical and emotional, careful and brave, selfish and selfless. The aliens seem to have chosen one path each, President Mi-young said. The Villani chose immortality. The Korthek chose efficiency. The Azari chose unity. But we want to be all things at once. General Taeho sat back down. Maybe that is our strength. We are not perfect at anything, but we are pretty good at everything. Dr. Dong-min was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. I have been thinking about evolution. Every species that survives does so because it can adapt to change. But if you become perfect, you stop changing. And if you stop changing, you stop evolving, finished Yoonji. You become a dead end. The room grew quiet as everyone thought about this. Outside, the sun was setting over Geneva. Around the world, billions of humans were going about their imperfect lives, fighting and loving, creating and destroying, dreaming and failing. I think, President Mi-young said slowly, we need to ask ourselves a different question. Not whether we should accept this offer, but whether we want to stop being human. Representative Park Soo-jin from Brazil raised her hand. What if we ask to visit their worlds first? To see what we would become? That is a good idea, Hyun-woo said from the screen. I will ask them tomorrow. As the meeting ended, the representatives went back to their countries with more questions than answers. But for the first time in years, the world felt united in something. Not in agreement, but in their right to disagree. The news that night showed protests in every major city. But they were not angry protests. They were thoughtful ones. Humans gathering to talk and argue and think together. In Tokyo, thousands of people sat in parks discussing the offer. In London, pubs stayed open late as people debated over drinks. In Cairo, families gathered on rooftops to look at the stars and wonder about their future. President Mi-young stood on her balcony that night, looking up at the sky. Somewhere up there, the Galactic Council was waiting for their answer. They probably expected humans to decide quickly, like other species had. They were going to be disappointed. And somehow, Mi Young thought that might be exactly what the galaxy needed. 3 weeks had passed since the humans were given the offer. 3 weeks of silence. The Galactic Council was not used to waiting. Vextal paced around her private chambers on Nexus Prime. Her silver eyes showed no emotion, but inside she felt something she had not experienced in thousands of years. Confusion. "This makes no sense," she said to her assistant, a younger Villani named Cortez. "Every species we have approached accepted within days. Most accepted immediately." Cortez nodded. "Perhaps they do not understand what we are offering. How? Can they not understand immortality? How can they not want to stop suffering?" The assistant had no answer. Neither did Vextal. In another part of the station, Threndok was analyzing data with perfect efficiency. His metal body processed information faster than any computer, but even he could not understand the human delay. "The data shows they are still debating," he reported to his second-in-command, Gorthek. "Their global networks are full of discussions about our offer." "Debating what? The offer is clearly beneficial." "That is what I do not understand. They seem to be questioning whether beneficial things are always good." Gorthek's mechanical head tilted. "That does not compute. If something is beneficial, it is good by definition. According to our logic, yes. But humans seem to use a different kind of logic." Even the Azari collective was puzzled. Their shared consciousness had never encountered a species that took so long to make group decisions. Quinara spoke for all of them when she addressed the emergency council session. "We have analyzed human behavior patterns," her multiple voices said. "They appear to value something called individual choice over collective benefit. This is highly inefficient." "Inefficient and dangerous," added war leader Zenthak of the Brutari. He was a massive creature covered in natural armor. "A species that cannot make quick decisions cannot survive in the galaxy." "Perhaps that is why they need our help," suggested bioengineer Flexera of the Shapelings. Her form shifted from solid to liquid as she spoke. "They are clearly too primitive to see the obvious choice." But scholar Nimeri of the Ethereals had a different thought. She was very old, even by galactic standards, and had seen many species rise and fall. "Or perhaps they see something we do not." The other council members stared at her. It was the first time in centuries that anyone had suggested the humans might know something they did not. "Impossible," Vextal said. "They are barely out of their system. We have been spacefaring for millions of years." "Age does not always bring wisdom," Nimeri replied quietly. The debate that followed was unlike anything the council had experienced in recent memory. They actually disagreed about something, not on facts or efficiency, but on interpretation. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo was receiving dozens of messages from Earth every day. The global debate was growing more intense, but also more thoughtful. Humans were not just arguing about the alien offer. They were arguing about what it meant to be human. "The farmers want to keep farming," he reported in his daily message to the council. "Even though your machines could grow food perfectly. The artists want to keep creating, even though AI could make better art. The teachers want to keep teaching, even though perfect knowledge transfer exists." "Why?" Vextal asked, during one of their calls. "Why choose the harder path when an easy one exists?" "Because," Hyunwoo said, "they believe the struggle is part of what makes life worth living." "That is illogical," Threndok stated. "Maybe, but it is human." The council members found themselves thinking about concepts they had not considered in millennia. When was the last time any of them had struggled? When had they last felt uncertain about something? When had they last learned something new? "I cannot remember the last time I was surprised," Vextal admitted to Cortez one day. "I know too much. I have lived too long. Everything is predictable." "Is that not good?" "Surprises are inefficient." Vextal was quiet for a long time. "Are they?" Back on Earth, the debates continued. But something interesting was happening. The arguments were bringing people together instead of tearing them apart. Families that had never talked about deep things were having philosophical discussions. Countries that usually disagreed were finding common ground. In a small cafe in Paris, an old man named Park Min-ho was talking to his granddaughter. When I was young, he said, we had nothing. But we had hope. We had dreams. We worked hard because we believed tomorrow could be better than today. But grandfather, she replied, if the aliens give us everything, every tomorrow will be perfect. Yes, he said sadly, and that is exactly the problem. The conversation was being repeated millions of times around the world. Humans were discovering that they did not want perfection. They wanted possibility. Dr. Dongmin had spent weeks studying the technical specifications the aliens had provided. The technology was amazing, but he noticed something troubling. These civilizations stopped innovating thousands of years ago, he told his research team. All their great achievements happened before they became perfect. What does that mean? Asked his assistant. It means that struggle drives innovation. When you solve all problems, you stop looking for new solutions. When you stop looking for solutions, you stop growing. Meanwhile, artist Sora had been studying examples of alien art that the council had shared. It was technically perfect, but it all looked the same. There was no emotion, no passion, no individual voice. They lost something when they gained everything, she wrote in her journal. They lost the beautiful imperfection that makes art meaningful. The reports from Earth confused the Galactic Council even more. How could a species be offered paradise and spend weeks debating whether they wanted it? Perhaps we should withdraw. The offer, suggested Threndok. If they are too primitive to appreciate it, they do not deserve it. No, said Vextal. There is something here we do not understand. Something important. What could they possibly teach us? Asked Quinara. I do not know, but for the first time in 1,000 years I want to find out. Scholar Nimeri smiled, an expression few had seen on an ethereal face in centuries. Curiosity, she said. When did we stop being curious? The question hung in the air like a challenge. The council members looked at each other with something approaching wonder. When had they stopped asking questions? When had they stopped seeking new experiences? The humans are doing something we have forgotten how to do, Nimeri continued. They are choosing uncertainty over certainty, growth over comfort, possibility over perfection. And you think that is wise? Vextal asked. I think it is alive. As the fourth week began, messages continued to flow between Earth and Nexus Prime. The humans were still debating, still arguing, still refusing to give a simple answer to a simple question. But maybe, some of the council members began to think it was not such a simple question after all. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council was learning something new. They were learning that there might be more than one way to look at perfection, and they were not sure they liked what they were learning about themselves. Hyunwoo stood before the Galactic Council with an unusual request. Instead of giving them an answer, he wanted to ask for something else. I would like to visit your homeworlds, he said, to better understand what my people would become if we accept your offer. The council members looked at each other with surprise. No species had ever asked this before. They had all simply accepted the gifts and moved on to their new lives. Why? Vexatal asked. We have shown you recordings. You have seen the data. Data tells me facts, Hyunwoo replied, but I want to understand how it feels to live as you live. After much discussion, the council agreed. They were curious about what the human would think of their perfect worlds. Hyunwoo's first stop was Velanos, homeworld of the immortal Velani. The ship that took him there moved faster than light, crossing the galaxy in hours instead of years. It was amazing technology, but the pilot seemed bored by the journey. How long have you been flying these ships? Hyunwoo asked. About 15,000 years, the pilot replied without interest. It was exciting for the first century or two. When they arrived at Velanos, Hyunwoo was amazed by what he saw. The cities were perfect, with buildings that seemed to grow from crystal and light. Gardens stretched as far as the eye could see, filled with plants from across the galaxy. The sky was always the perfect color, the weather always just right. But something felt wrong. His guide was a Velani named Zelthara. She had lived for over 200,000 years and had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. She moved with the grace of someone who had had forever to perfect every motion. Welcome to paradise, she said, but her voice was flat. What would you like to see first? They walked through the crystal cities. Everything was beautiful and clean. There was no poverty, no suffering, no conflict. People moved through their daily lives with calm efficiency. "It is wonderful," Hyunwoo said. "Everyone seems so peaceful." "Yes," Zelthara agreed. "We have not had a war in 50,000 years. We have not had crime in longer than that. We have solved all our problems." They visited museums filled with amazing art and artifacts. But Hyunwoo noticed something strange. All the greatest works were very old. The newest pieces in the museum were tens of thousands of years old. "Do people still create art?" he asked. Zelthara paused. "Sometimes, but everything that can be created has been created. Every story that can be told has been told. Every song that can be sung has been sung. But surely new experiences create. New art? What new experiences? We have seen everything, done everything, been everywhere. There is nothing left to discover." They sat in a beautiful garden as the sun set. The sunset was perfect, as it was every day. Hyunwoo watched Zelthara's face and saw something that shocked him. She looked sad. "Are you happy?" he asked. The question seemed to surprise her. "Happy? I have not thought about happiness in thousands of years. I am content. I am safe. I am comfortable. But are you happy?" Zelthara was quiet for a long time. "I remember being happy," she finally said, "when I was young and mortal, when things could surprise me, when tomorrow might be different from today. What changed? Everything became predictable. When you cannot die, time loses meaning. When you have infinite time, nothing feels urgent. When nothing feels urgent, nothing feels important." That night, Hyunwoo lay in his perfect room looking up at the perfect stars. He thought about his own life on Earth. He thought about his grandmother, who had died when he was 12. He had been so sad then, but also grateful for the time they had together. Would he have felt the same way if she had lived forever? The next day, they visited a school. The children there were not really children. They were hundreds of years old but looked young because they chose to. They learned perfect lessons from perfect teachers about subjects that never changed. "Do you ever disagree with your teachers?" Hyunwoo asked one student. The young-looking person tilted their head in confusion. "Why would we disagree? They know everything." "But what if you see things differently?" "How can we see things differently? There is only one correct way to see things." Hyunwoo left Velanos feeling troubled. His next stop was Korthek Prime, homeworld, of the efficiency-obsessed Korthek. If Velanos was beautiful, Korthek Prime was impressive. Everything was organized perfectly. There was no waste, no inefficiency, no random events. Every action served a purpose. Every resource was used optimally. His guide, Gorthek, showed him around with obvious pride. "We have eliminated all inefficiency," he said. "Every calorie of energy, every minute of time, every gram of matter serves the optimal purpose." The Ambad cities were marvels of engineering. Traffic flowed in perfect patterns. Factories produced exactly what was needed, when it was needed. People moved through their daily routines with clockwork precision. "It is amazing," Hyunwoo said. "Nothing is wasted." "Exactly. We have achieved perfect optimization." But as they walked, Hyunwoo noticed what was missing. There were no parks that served no purpose except beauty. No music playing just for joy. No one stopping to help someone else when it was not their assigned duty. "Where are your artists?" Hyunwoo asked. "We have art production facilities. They create optimal aesthetic experiences." "But where are the artists? The people who create because they want to?" Gorthek paused. "Want? Want is inefficient. We create what is needed." They visited one of the art production facilities. Machines created beautiful paintings and sculptures with perfect technique, but they all looked the same somehow. There was no personality, no individual voice, no passion. "Do people ever create things just because they feel like it?" Hyunwoo asked. "That would be wasteful," Gorthek replied. "Why create when it is not needed?" "Because creation itself has value?" Gorthek's mechanical eyes flickered. "I do not understand that concept." That evening, Hyunwoo asked to walk alone through the city. Everything was clean and safe and orderly, but it felt empty somehow. He passed a group of Korthek citizens and tried to start a conversation. Beautiful evening, he said. The atmospheric conditions are optimal, one replied. Do you ever just enjoy the weather? Enjoy? Weather serves a function. Enjoyment is irrelevant. But do you ever feel happy just to be alive? The citizens looked at each other in confusion. Happiness is inefficient, they said, and walked away. His final stop was the Azari collective homeworld. Here he would experience perfect unity. No loneliness, no conflict, no misunderstanding. When the ship arrived, Hyunwoo was greeted by Quinara herself, but he noticed something different about her. She seemed less certain than before. I have been thinking about our conversations, she said. The collective finds this disturbing. Why disturbing? Because individual thinking is supposed to be inferior to collective thinking. But your questions have created doubts. The Azari world was different from the others. Instead of cities, there were vast networks of connected buildings where the collective consciousness could flow freely. Everyone was connected to everyone else through a mental link that allowed them to share thoughts and feelings instantly. Would you like to experience it? Quinara asked. The connection? Hyunwoo hesitated, then agreed. The moment the link was established, he was overwhelmed. He could feel the thoughts and emotions of millions of beings all at once. It was peaceful and harmonious, but also terrifying. Everyone thought the same thoughts. Everyone felt the same feelings. There was no disagreement, no conflict, no individual perspective. It was perfect unity. But it was also death of the self. How do you remain you? Hyunwoo asked when the connection was broken. I do not, Quinara replied. There is no me. There is only us. But you are talking to me as an individual. Only because the collective allows it for this conversation. Normally, individual thought is not permitted. Do you ever miss it? Being yourself? Quinara was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was different. Smaller, more personal. Sometimes, she whispered, I remember what it felt like to have my own thoughts, to disagree with someone and still care about them, to be lonely sometimes, but also to be me. What happened to that feeling? The collective absorbed it, for the greater good. As Hyunwoo prepared to leave, Quinara grabbed his arm. For a moment, her eyes showed something that looked like panic. Do not let them take your arguments, she whispered. Do not let them take your beautiful, messy, inefficient humanity. We thought we were becoming better, but we only became less. On the journey back to Nexus Prime, Hyunwoo thought about everything he had seen. 3 perfect civilizations. 3 different kinds of paradise. 3 different ways of losing what made life worth living. The Volani had gained forever, but lost urgency and wonder. The Korthek had gained efficiency, but lost joy and beauty. The Azari had gained unity, but lost individuality and growth. They had all solved their problems by giving up the things that made them who they were. As his ship approached the space station, Hyunwoo finally understood what he had to tell the Galactic Council, and he knew it was not what they expected to hear. Hyunwoo stood in the center of the council chamber once again. This time, he was not nervous. He had seen what he needed to see, learned what he needed to learn. The 12 council members waited for his answer with growing impatience. Well, Vextal asked, you have seen our worlds. You have witnessed the peace and perfection we offer. Surely now you understand the value of our gift. Hyunwoo looked around the chamber. The same powerful beings sat in their thrones looking down at him, but now he saw them differently. Now he saw what they had lost. I do understand, he said, and that is why I must ask you some questions before I give you our answer. Questions? Threndok's mechanical voice showed surprise. What questions could you possibly have? When, Hyunwoo said slowly, did the Velani last create something that surprised even themselves? Silence filled the chamber. Vextal's perfect face showed confusion. What do you mean? She asked. Art, music, literature, technology. When did your people last make something that was truly new? Something that made you think, I never imagined this was possible? Vextal opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. Her silver eyes showed something that might have been fear. We Our art is perfect. We have achieved the highest forms of beauty. But when was it created? Long ago. There is no need for new art when we have perfected it. Hyunwoo turned to Threndok. When did the Korthek last choose beauty over efficiency? When did you last do something just because it felt good instead of because it served a purpose? The mechanical being's eyes flickered rapidly, processing the question. That would be illogical. Inefficient actions serve no purpose. But did you always think that way? Before your ascension, did your people ever dance just for joy? Did they ever plant flowers just because they were pretty? Threndok was quiet for a long time. I do not remember. Finally, Hyunwoo looked at Quinara. When did the Azari Collective last experience the joy of changing someone else's mind through passionate argument? When did you last discover that you were wrong about something important? Quinara's multiple voices faltered. The collective is never wrong. Disagreement is impossible when all think as one. But before the collective, did your people argue? Did they disagree and still love each other? Did they learn from their differences? Those were primitive times, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Hyunwoo walked slowly around the chamber, looking at each council member. I have reports from my people on Earth. We have been studying not just your technologies, but your civilizations. All of you. He activated a holographic display that showed data his team had compiled. Charts and graphs filled the air above him. Every one of your species achieved their greatest accomplishments before their ascension. The Volani's most beautiful art, their greatest literature, their most moving music, all created when they were mortal. The Korthek's most ingenious inventions, their most elegant solutions, developed when they still cared about more than efficiency. The data painted a clear picture. Innovation had stopped when perfection was achieved. The Azari's greatest philosophical insights, their most profound discoveries about the universe, all made when individual minds could disagree with each other and find new truths through conflict. Dr. Dongmin's research appeared on the display. For the past 50,000 years, your technological advancement has been essentially zero. You maintain what you have, but you create nothing new. We have no need for advancement, Vextal said. We have achieved perfection. Have you? Hyunwoo asked. Or have you achieved stagnation? The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several council members shouted objections, but others were quiet, thinking about what they had heard. Scholar Nim Airy of the Ethereals spoke softly. Continue, human. Hyunwoo displayed more data. Artist Sora analyzed examples of your art, technically perfect, but emotionally empty. No individual voice, no personal pain or joy. It is beautiful, but it says nothing. Images of alien art appeared next to human paintings. The alien works were flawless, but the human pieces, messy, imperfect, passionate, seemed more alive somehow. Philosopher Yunji studied your societies. No conflict, no disagreement, no growth through struggle. You have achieved peace by eliminating the very forces that drive progress. Progress toward what? Threndok demanded. We have everything we need. Progress toward being more than you were yesterday. Progress toward understanding. Progress toward becoming something greater than you imagined possible. Hyunwoo's voice grew stronger. You offered us immortality. But what good is forever if every day is exactly the same? You offered us unity. But what good is agreement if no one ever learns anything new? You offered us perfection. But perfect things cannot improve. The council chamber was in chaos now. Some members were angry, others confused. A few looked thoughtful, even troubled. You are being disrespectful, war leader Zenthak growled. We offer you gifts beyond measure, and you insult us. I am not insulting you, Hyunwoo replied. I'm trying to understand why civilizations that once reached for the stars now sit in comfortable chairs and do nothing. He activated the final part of his presentation. My people have discovered something about evolution. Species that become too perfectly adapted to their environment stop evolving. They become evolutionary dead ends. When conditions change, they cannot adapt, and they die out. But we control our environments perfectly, Vextal protested. Do you? What happens when something truly unexpected occurs? What happens when you face a problem you have never seen before? How do you solve it? When everyone thinks exactly the same way, Scholar Nimeri rose from her throne. Her ancient eyes showed something that had not been there for millennia. Curiosity. What are you saying, human? I am saying that struggle drives innovation. Mortality gives life meaning. Disagreement leads to new ideas. Imperfection leaves room for improvement. You have eliminated all of these things, and in doing so, you have eliminated your ability to grow. The chamber fell silent. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council was hearing something completely new. But surely, Vextal said weakly, suffering is bad, death is bad, conflict is bad. Not all suffering, Hyunwoo replied. The pain of childbirth brings new life. The struggle of learning makes knowledge precious. The sadness of loss makes love meaningful. Take away all pain, and joy becomes meaningless too. Bioengineer Flexara's form shifted nervously. Are you suggesting we were wrong to eliminate these things? I am suggesting that maybe they were not all bad things to eliminate. Young Quinara, the individual part of the Azari collective, spoke in her own voice for the first time in centuries. I remember now. I remember feeling sad and happy at the same time. I remember being wrong about something and learning from it. I remember... Silence, the collective voices commanded, but the individual voice continued. I remember being alive. The effect of her words rippled through the chamber. Other council members began to look uncertain. Some seemed to be remembering things they had not thought about for thousands of years. This is why, Hyunwoo said, humanity must respectfully decline your generous offer. The words hung in the air like an explosion. Never before had a species refused the gifts of the Galactic Council. But, Hyunwoo continued, we would like to make a counteroffer. What? Vexatal gasped. We offer you the chance to remember what it means to be alive. And with those words, everything in the galaxy began to change. The silence in the council chamber was broken by the sound of Hyunwoo's communication device. He had arranged for this moment, knowing that his words alone might not be enough. Council members, he said, I would like you to hear directly from the leader of humanity. The holographic display activated and President Mi-young appeared. Her image filled the center of the chamber, and she looked directly at each council member as she spoke. Honored beings of the Galactic Council, she began. After much discussion, debate, and careful thought, humanity has reached a decision regarding your generous offer. The council members leaned forward in their thrones. Even those who were angry wanted to hear what she would say. We respectfully decline. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several council members stood up in shock. Never in the history of the galaxy had any species refused ascension. But, President Mi-young continued, our refusal comes with an unprecedented counteroffer. Vextal found her voice first. What could you possibly offer us? Mi-young smiled, and in that smile was something the council had not seen in millennia. Genuine warmth mixed with sadness and hope and uncertainty. We offer you the chance to remember what it means to dream, to argue, to risk failure for the possibility of wonder. We offer you mortality as a choice, inefficiency as art, and disagreement as the engine of progress. This is madness, Threndok stated. You offer us imperfection when we have achieved perfection. Yes, Mi-young said simply. We offer you the chance to be beautifully, chaotically, gloriously imperfect once again. She gestured to someone off-screen, and Dr. Dong-min appeared beside her. Our scientists have studied your technologies. We understand how they work. We could use them to become like you. But we have also discovered something else. The display showed new data, research that had been conducted in secret during the debate period. We can reverse the process. We can give immortals the choice to be mortal again. We can give the collective-minded the option to think individual thoughts. We can give the perfectly efficient the freedom to be beautifully wasteful. The effect on the council was immediate and dramatic. Several members stood up and began shouting. Others sat in stunned silence. A few looked interested for the first time in centuries. You offer us death? War leader Zenthak roared. You offer us chaos? We offer you choice, Mi-young replied, calmly. the choice to live differently than you have for thousands of years. Artist Sora appeared on the screen next. Behind her was a painting she had created during the debate period. It was messy and imperfect, full of wild colors and passionate brushstrokes. "This painting is about the fear of dying," she said. "About the sadness of losing someone you love. About the joy of creating something that might outlive you. It took me 50 years to learn to paint this badly. Your art machines could create something technically better in minutes, but they could never create this." Bioengineer Flexara's form shifted rapidly, showing her emotional state. "What you call imperfection, you value it?" "We treasure it," Sora replied, "because it is ours, because it comes from our hearts and our struggles and our brief, precious lives." Philosopher Yunji appeared next. "We have learned that consciousness is not about knowing everything. It is about questioning everything. It is about being wrong and learning from it. It is about growing and changing and becoming more than you were." "But growth is inefficient," Threndok protested, though his voice seemed less certain than before. "Yes," Yunji agreed. "Growth is wasteful and messy and often painful. It is also the only thing that makes existence meaningful." The camera switched. Back to President Mi Young. "We do not ask you to give up what you have gained. We only ask you to consider that maybe you have also lost something valuable, and if you have, we offer you the chance to find it again." The hologram flickered and changed to show scenes from Earth, humans working in fields under the hot sun, even though machines could do it better, artists struggling with their craft, even though AI could create perfect art, scientists debating theories, even though databases contained all known facts. "We choose the harder path," Mi Young said, "because the struggle itself has value. We choose uncertainty because certainty is the death of growth. We choose mortality because it makes every moment precious." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in chaos. Members were arguing for the first time in thousands of years, real arguments with passion and disagreement and individual perspectives. Vextal stood up, her perfect composure finally cracking. This is alive," Scholar Nimeri finished quietly. "This is what being alive feels like." Young Quinara, still speaking in her individual voice, stepped forward. "I want to try it. I want to remember what it felt like to be me." "You cannot!" the collective voices screamed in her head. "You will be alone! You will suffer!" "Yes," she said, and for the first time in centuries, she smiled. "I will be me." Over the following hours, the council debated with an intensity they had not felt in millennia. Some members were horrified by the human proposal. Others were intrigued. A few were desperate to experience something new. In the end, the council split for the first time in galactic history. 7 species chose to maintain their perfect status. 5 species chose to send representatives to Earth to learn about being imperfect again. Vextal was among those who chose to try. "I have lived for 200,000 years," she said. "I have been safe and comfortable and immortal, but I have not been alive. I want to remember what that feels like, even if it hurts." Threndok also decided to send volunteers. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "efficiency is not the only measure of value. The Azari collective fractured as thousands of individuals chose to disconnect and rediscover their personal thoughts." Quinara was the first to arrive on Earth, and when she stepped off the ship, she cried. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming joy of feeling something intensely personal again. The other species that chose humanity's path sent their volunteers as well. They came not as teachers or rulers, but as students. They came to learn how to be mortal, how to disagree, how to create imperfect beauty. Hyun Woo, now humanity's first galactic ambassador, stood in his office on Earth looking up at the stars. Ships were coming and going constantly now, bringing aliens who wanted to learn how to be beautifully imperfect. In the art studio next door, Sora was teaching a 1,000-year-old Vallani student how to paint with the urgency that comes from knowing. Your time is limited. The alien's first painting was terrible by technical standards, but it showed something that had been missing from Vallani art for millennia. Soul. Down the hall, General Taiho was discussing military strategy with a Korthek. commander who was experiencing tactical creativity for the first time. The alien had discovered that sometimes the inefficient solution was the most effective one. In universities around the world, immortal beings were learning mortal subjects. They studied philosophy that had no perfect answers, science that led to more questions, and history that showed how failure could lead to wisdom. But the most remarkable change was in the former council members themselves. Vextal, now choosing to age slowly, had written her first poem in 50,000 years. It was about the beauty of autumn leaves, beautiful precisely because they did not last forever. Threndok had planted a garden that served no purpose except to make him smile. He watched it grow with wonder, amazed that something so inefficient could bring such joy. Quinara had started a small school where former collective minds could learn to think individual thoughts. The arguments were loud and messy and completely inefficient. They were also the most productive discussions any of them had ever experienced. Not everything went smoothly. Some of the volunteers could not handle the intensity of individual existence and returned to their perfect worlds. Others struggled with concepts like mortality and uncertainty, but many stayed. And they changed. They learned to laugh at their own mistakes. They discovered the joy of being surprised. They found beauty in imperfection and meaning in struggle. Most importantly, they began to grow again. The galaxy that had been stagnant for millions of years was suddenly alive with new ideas, new art, new ways of thinking. The species that had chosen to remain perfect watched with growing unease as their former colleagues began to create things that even they found impressive. Some began to reconsider their own choices. President Mi-young stood beside Hyun-woo at the window, watching a ship depart for the Andromeda Galaxy. It carried a mixed crew of humans and former council members, all eager to explore new worlds and new possibilities. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked. Hyun-woo smiled. "I think we made the human choice. And that seems to be exactly what the galaxy needed." Above them, the stars twinkled with new possibilities. Humanity had not joined the galactic community by becoming like everyone else. They had reminded the galaxy what it meant to be alive, to grow, to change, to dream. In choosing to remain imperfect, humanity had offered the galaxy something more precious than immortality, or efficiency, or unity. They had offered hope. And hope, it turned out, was the one thing the perfect civilizations had forgotten how to create. The story of humanity's refusal became legend throughout the galaxy, not as a tale of stubborn primitives, but as the moment when the universe remembered how to dream again. And in the end,